Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome back to Reality Realness with three S's. I'm your host here, Chantele Francis, with my co-host for this week for the amazing race. We have Josh Green. How are you today, Josh?
I'm doing well, Chantel. Thank you for having me on. I'm so excited to talk about this season of the race. It's been a lot of different moving parts, and I'm excited to get into it with you.
Yes, so many moving parts. So, what is your background with the amazing race in general?
So I had watched in like the mid to late 20s, and then was watching like the reality TV season when the Big Brother people came on, and then went back to watch Colin and Christie's original season, which was just crazy reality TV. And I've always enjoyed the race, even though Survivor's like my true reality TV love. But the race has been great, and I think they've been doing a great job with casting, and it's only been helping the show.
Well, if Survivor is your true love, you have a podcast though, the Challenge, a Fanatics podcast. So how does that work?
So you're not wrong there. I COVID really got me watching the challenge a ton, and two of my best friends watch it a lot, and that's how our podcasts came to be. Um, like everybody, we were bored during COVID, so um, we were like, "Oh, let's talk about the show." And I mean, there's been a ton of seasons now during the COVID era. It seems like they're pumping out a new season every like time you turn on Twitter. There's a rumored cast list, and it's been fun. We still do talk about Survivor and Amazing Race a little bit, but we focus more on the challenge just because we've had guests from the show come on, and we've noticed we've gotten more listeners from the challenge. But
For sure.
love all of them.
Me too. You know that I'm an avid fan of all the above. I've been watching them
Yeah.
all since the very beginning. Always
Mhm.
been obsessed. But if you didn't know, I met Josh the last time Rob as a podcast did a live viewing in New York, and I guess it's kind of fated that we are doing a pod together today because I would have been in DC today if everything in my schedule didn't get all messed around. So there is another live know-it-alls in DC this week, tomorrow actually, and I'm really having serious FOMO that I'm not getting to participate because I really had a blast last time.
As am I. I had a ticket, and some things changed in my schedule as well. The Phillies are in the World Series, which I did not expect to happen. Some work stuff happened, so it wouldn't have worked out. But I'm definitely going to be also having serious FOMO, seeing all of our friends in DC tomorrow.
Well, like Shannon's there. I'm like,
Yeah,
Shannon, like we had made plans. We're like, oh
yeah.
my God, we're gonna meet. And then I had to like break it to her that it wasn't gonna happen this time around. And she doesn't live very close for it to try to make it happen in the future. But I'm seeing if maybe I can finagle going next week to Boston and just do like a day in Boston, hang out with her, and then go to Bryson Wen's next Wednesday. So I'm toying with that.
It's very interesting you say that because I'm also thinking about doing that as well.
Right?
Um,
It's not too
so
far from me, and I could
yeah.
probably get a cheap flight,
Mhm.
especially now that I'm back working for the airline, you know? So, I it's something that I'm toying. It's not 100% yet, but I'm
Yeah,
just yeah, FOMO, but hopefully maybe we can make a little appearance next week. But
be
we're
great.
not talking about Survivor today. We're talking about last week's episode of The Amazing Race. Now, it was called Step by Step. Um, I'm trying to figure out why it was called that. Do you have any it wasn't said by somebody. Am I just
Half of
forgetting what
the
happened in this episode?
half of the detour was called Step by Step, the
Oh,
dance task. That could be why.
probably. It
But
doesn't really detail the entire episode though. So usually they have some good ones where it's like you can understand what the episode's about by the title
um,
or it's something that someone says. And so I like to sometimes figure out what it is, but yeah, that probably when I went through my notes, I'd probably be like, oh, there's the episode title. I get it.
yeah, or like who gets the episode title, that's more of a Survivor thing, but sometimes on the race we get that as well, where someone says the line that's the title of the episode.
So what are you thinking of this season so far? So you're saying that you've watched since the reality season all the way up, or just a couple? I didn't
Um, so so all the way up, and then
went back to
or
like
yeah,
season 2. They're like season 2, aren't they? Like they're
no, no,
far
no,
back.
no. So like from 31 to where we are now, and then I went back and watched Colin and Christie's, and then a few random ones. And I like that they're trying to change it a little bit. I just I had actually listened to one of your recaps about it earlier in the season, and I like the scramble that they did in the beginning. I just wish they'd done it with less teams because
Fair.
it's so complicated with a ton of
Just like
teams.
who's where? I don't
Yeah,
know who's doing what or who's ahead. Like have a tracker, something,
right.
something.
I do like that they're trying though, that they're making an effort to keep the show fresh, keep things innovative, and with this season, I like all the different relationships that they were able to find. They're really I like everybody on this season.
Mhm.
There's definitely people who I was a little upset with or a little like why are like, you're not giving me a ton, but, like, at least I can see why you're here, but
Mhm.
it's been fun. I've really been enjoying, Emily and Molly, I think like everybody, and,
I'm obsessed with them. Like, I
yeah,
also have like a twin thing. Like, there's a lot of twins in my family. I feel like if I were to have children, I would have twins or something wild, like triplets or something.
mm,
You know, my best friend's fiance is a twin. Like, it's everybody around me is twins, and so I've always had just this like thing for twins. And then they have this amazing story. So yeah, they're definitely my favorite team just to watch as a person that enjoys watching reality TV to see these social dynamics and human behavior and like how people interact. Like they are the full package of getting to really be a fly on a wall on a relationship that's growing in a really, really interesting circumstance.
and exactly, with the last part, you hit the nail on the head, of course, like, casting when they heard their story
They're
must
like,
have been like, "You're on the show." Like, get the matching outfits now. Like there's no way they were gonna pass up on a story like that. Who has twins that didn't know each other for 36 years, come on the show and like absolutely crush it in all of these tasks, and it's been amazing. And you said you have twins everywhere you look. You've got another one right
are
here.
you a twin?
I'm a boy girl twin. My sister's 2 minutes older than me. So and
How much
they're
older?
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. And, yeah, they were both, Emily and Molly were both bat mitzvahed, and, my
Which I
family
think is wild.
yeah,
You know, like I've been to, well, I believe you're Jewish, and like I've been to many, 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 many bat mitzvahs, and so like that was also really cool to hear that both of them separately adopted two Jewish families. Both, well, one for sure had. I think Molly
yeah,
had a bat mitzvah for sure, and like both know the Hebrew alphabet. That's like so awesome.
and, like, the odds of that are just insane, and then to have the task be perfect, like, before the confessional even came up where they were talking about it, just seeing the sounds and, uh, the transcription of the letters, I was just like, "This is perfect for anyone who knows, like, Hebrew, Arabic, like, it couldn't have been better for them, really.
Totally.
It was just
So
awesome.
another team though didn't have the best of luck this episode. We begin at the starting line and we see Phil going on to FaceTime to talk to Will and Abby. So what were your thoughts about Will and Abby, and how about how they got taken out of this race?
I really felt for them. I know, like, they were definitely not prominent in the edit, by any stretch,
Mhm.
but I feel like the show sometimes they have to craft it where they know the end result, and this may have been a situation where they knew what was gonna happen, and they didn't want people invested in them as a team. I do feel for them as super fans, one for having this, and then two to get eliminated over FaceTime. Like, just obviously they had to do it that way, but it's just brutal. It's
Brutal.
tough. Yeah.
And she was, you could see in her face, she was just devastated for the
Oh yeah.
fact that, like, it was her dream and he was coming on, and it was him that got sick, unfortunately. And then I heard after, in I don't think it was an exit interview, but it was like, I think she was on one of another racer's podcast,
Mhm.
and she says that she works for Pfizer and they didn't get a booster even a little bit more recently. So like they wish that they just like postponed getting it so that at least it would have been like more effective per se,
Right.
like a little bit closer to them traveling. But like she works for Pfizer.
You would. I mean, I don't want to speak out of turn here, but you would think like if you work for one of those companies, you'd be able to get one like very quickly.
Well,
That's
I mean, they probably just didn't think that it would like it
yeah.
would have been necessary. It's all definitely hindsight being 2020 here, being like, oh, well, not 2020. But like they're probably thinking like, oh, I wish that we had just said postpone it or got another booster later or something like that. Like not really thinking that it was going to affect their race at all. Because they probably are triple vaccinated and they're probably just running the race, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, oh,
Yeah.
I feel so bad for them. Um, but the race must go on. So all the teams are going to be leaving at the exact same time. And for a season that is saying that there's no eliminations, there's no actual eliminations here. What do you think about the semantics here of like a team getting eliminated at the beginning of the leg and then no team getting eliminated at the end, and instead it's going to set up the with the groups that are going to be leaving next leg?
I'm very glad it's audio podcasts because the whole time you were explaining it, I was rolling my eyes and
It's not an audio.
or excuse me,
Video.
I was saying video in my head and said audio out loud. Um, yeah, I was really frustrated. I like the show doesn't need to say like, "Oh, this is going to be the hardest season of the Amazing Race." No non-elimination legs. You had a mega leg, which is technically non-elimination
Yep.
because there was an episode and no one went home, and now um we're having teams race for the ability to only be 15 minutes behind two teams. I know they tried to word it more dramatically. The reality is they're 15 minutes behind two teams, so it's really not that big of a deal at all.
Well, actually, if I'm not mistaken, I could be incorrect, but so there's two teams that are leaving. We'll say first, and
Mhm,
then a second group of people leaving 15 minutes after them. Then
mhm.
there's a third group of two leading after that. So that's half an hour, I believe. Because I could have sworn he said the final one team was going to be 45 minutes behind the first teams that left. So it is
Uh,
significant, and if you're last, it seems like chances are you're going to be done so, unless there's an equalizer that we don't aren't aware of.
well, thank you for that because I must have misheard the way he said it. I thought he was saying it that you were like 45 minutes behind team number 1
Well,
and not
team number 4, the one
yeah,
like the last team is 45 minutes behind the first team for the first two teams,
got it.
basically.
Yeah.
Basically.
So it will
What do
be
you think of that though as like a way to shuffle things up a little bit differently?
yeah, it will be tough for sure because like these teams in these seasons, a lot of the legs have not had really far drives. Everything's been relatively close together, or they've been on foot. Um, so 45 minutes is a lot of time in the legs now. Obviously, before in different seasons, that is not a ton of time. If someone gets lost, you can make up that time. But um, they, going into the leg, if you're that last place team, you better hope for like a needle in the haystack challenge in France or, uh, you know, something really difficult to catch up time.
Especially and wait, do you have a favorite team? So obviously we talked about Molly and Emily,
Yeah.
like they're hands down pretty much everybody's favorite teams. But other than them, how do you have another couple two teams that you're kind of rooting for?
Yeah, I would say Glenda and Lumumba, they have been so fun. I love their dynamic, and I just love that, um, they both, like, really are confident and self-aware in their relationship, like, they both know when to step up and help the other one out when they need help, and I
Hmm.
feel like on the race, we don't see that very often, uh, in relationships, like, we see people just arguing a lot on the race, 'cause it
You
is
probably have
aggressive sometimes.
PTSD from Colin and Christy.
Yes, certainly. But no, I really like them and, um, who I don't wanna forget. I feel like there's one more that I really enjoy. Oh, can't believe I forgot them. Derek X and Claire, and,
Of course.
uh, it's it's been a blast seeing them on TV. I just love how, Derek X is a really nice guy. Met him, when we met in New York, and I love that he's staying booked and busy, and really like him and Claire together. Just wish he wouldn't have her building all the time.
Well, okay, I was listening to their podcast talking
Yeah.
about their experience of the race, and the reason why they're getting Claire to do all these building ones, especially this particular leg, they knew that the worst they weren't going to be eliminated, so
Mm.
they wanted to just get Claire doing all these roadblocks that are not physical, so that if it's all the physical ones that they just Derek has to do them, and she wouldn't have to maybe compete with other men maybe doing a physical roadblock. So that was their intention, was to get her to do as many non-physical or anything with like memorization or with puzzles, like those type of roadblocks is like they decided that she would do pretty much regardless.
And it makes sense. Like they talk about it in the episodes, but like they really are outthinking people. And even like what you just mentioned, like when it comes down to like deciphering the clues, what could this mean we're doing? What could that mean we're doing? Um, they really it's I knew they were smart, but like this has been a new level of smart with these two.
I love it. I mean, I love people that can like game the system, and it's in this kind of in a completely like non-cheating kind of way. You know what I mean? Like they are just outsmarting the game and like the other players potentially. And so I'm always here for finding a legal shortcut. You know. So what they have to do first is find a clue in the Citadel, and apparently they told Claire and Derek said that this bookstore that they had to look for
Mhm.
wasn't actually even in Google Maps. It was kind of like it was like a small inside this little city that like only somebody that's lived in that area for a long time would have any idea of what it was because it wasn't actually on Google Maps.
So I listened to like one or two of their recaps in the beginning of the season. Now that we're like really getting down to it, I need to listen to more of theirs. Um, that's crazy. That it wasn't even Google Maps. Do you think that's part of like they know that teams are gonna ask for people's cell phones, so they're
Hmm.
yeah.
I think they're just trying to make it a little bit more challenging, and
Mhm.
you know, especially since they're all leaving at the exact same time. So like, it makes it a little bit more difficult for everybody to easily get to this first destination. It will allow teams to kind of break apart a little bit because they're gonna be like, oh, let me get directions from this guy. Oh, this guy doesn't go. Let me go find this guy. And like, I think it just makes it a little bit harder and makes everybody break apart a little bit better, starting at the same time.
Yeah.
So yeah, everybody's kind of asking directions. One thing I did notice was everyone was wearing a mask. We hadn't
Yeah.
been seeing very many masks before this episode, and understandably, everybody when they're interacting with any other people were wearing masks. Did you notice that too?
I did. It was very reminiscent of some of the Big Brother stuff where like Julie would say like a hug. I forget her phrase that she would say, but like oh, long distance hug or
A virtual
this
hug.
yeah, yeah, virtual hug. I know like all the coverage was making fun of that when Julie would say that on eviction night, and that came up in my head because like we for so long the masks were gone on the show, and then this preview came up that someone was getting COVID,
Hmm.
and then now it's I'm sure CBS was like behind the screens like or behind the scenes, excuse me. They were like, "We need everybody masks at
Right?
all times, no excuses at all. Only if you're like talking to a local or interacting with one of our people can you not be wearing a mask or something." But I did notice it for sure.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
I think it's also hilarious how Claire and Derek follow the brothers. Like they have such an interesting relationship that I would like to see a little bit more of. We're always
Mhm.
seeing like Derek running up and jumping into, I believe it was Marcus's arms, and
Yeah.
be like, "Oh, if you see the brothers, you know you're doing a good job, or you're not in last." And like, so I love that. Like, let's just follow the brothers, even though ideally you don't want to follow people, but in this situation, it's kind of like you kind of want to stick with somebody because if you're both in the end, you still have a 50-50 chance of like making it to the mat. And that was also their strategy as well.
And I feel like with Derek and Claire, they have so much background in being on these shows, being fans of these shows. They know that even on the race, it's still important to have a couple of teams that are in your corner, and eventually they're going to run their own race, but it'll help them just survive in advance. And for much of the race, that's what it's about. But they should, if they can, do whatever possible to get rid of Marcus and
Oh,
Michael.
I don't know if that's happening. I feel like they're going
Yeah,
to make the podium for sure. I can see them making
yeah,
the podium and losing,
yeah.
but I feel like they never mess up too badly, it seems. So I can see them making it to the final three, most likely. My what I'm thinking the final three is going to be. Well, I'm worried about Emily and Molly. I want them to win. I think that this is their story, this is their season, like, but every episode she's been mentioning her leg. And
Mhm.
and Emily didn't do the roadblock, we'll talk about it shortly, but because she was worried that she's gonna have to cart something around and like her leg. And I'm like, is this a precursor to her leg taking them out of the grace? Because she can't either run in a foot race or do something, strenuous.
It's very possible, and I mean, if we're talking about the better teams right now, placement wise, you've got Lewis and Michelle, um, DX and Claire, Marcus and Michael, and Emily and Molly, and I feel like the three first teams that I listed, like they can beat Emily and Molly in a foot race if it comes down to it. So
Right?
I am worried for them, but they are just so good at these
It's
tasks
true.
that I'm hoping it is enough. Because I really would love to see them win. Like that would be a remarkable story for winners.
Whew. Like, I don't think I mean, I'm sure that CBS is like, "Please win, guys.
Yeah,
We need this one. We need redemption for this having to send a team home for COVID. Like, we need this story."
yeah, yeah,
But the fact that I keep on hearing about her leg
yeah.
very much worries me. And there's no not a limb, so I just feel like it's a potential that they can take it out, even though I want them to win. But Lewis and Michelle have really snuck in there for me as becoming one of my favorite teams as well. So I'm like, how am I going to fit them in my top three?
Hmm. Yeah, they. I really like their dynamic. You know, again, another pair that are they're married, right? They're not in a relationship. Um, well, technically both, but um,
Yeah.
I I really enjoy seeing them, and Michelle's really crushed like all the dance tasks. And Lewis has done a good job on these last couple legs with the roadblocks. So, yeah, they've been really impressive. They were one of the teams that was like fading in the background for me, but then all of a sudden
They
now,
turned it up,
yeah, yeah,
which I'm
maybe
liking.
maybe they were just trying to survive in advance, and now they're trying to make
Now
their
trying to win.
yeah.
That's possible because like that's probably how I would play any of these social strategy games. Like, I mean, this one's not as social, but you kind of just want to like lay low, most likely to a point where you're like, okay, now I've established myself as being here. Let me turn on like the win equity and like let's get us to the win. And so maybe that's what they were doing. They're just like, let's just survive until now we can thrive.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I definitely think that's the case with them, because Lewis was right. It's one thing to get one first place, but to get them back to back, um, they definitely are a good team. I shouldn't have discounted them. They are good.
But they weren't showing us them in the
That's
beginning,
true.
so we don't get the live feeds here, which I would love the live feeds for The Amazing Race and Survivor, but we don't get it, so we only get what they show us, and so that allows us to develop our own biases and our own opinions of people, and we just don't have the full information. So I'm happy we're learning more about them, because the more I'm learning, the more I'm liking. And shout out to Lewis. He commented last week, and so if he's listening again, we love you guys. We do,
Yes.
we do. So the brothers and the twins, like, how did that happen? Show up at the bookstore first. I'm like, you guys are so awesome, you twins. And they're choosing between episode title, Step by Step, and Letter by Letter. So I'm assuming you would do letter by letter, but what do you think about these two tasks?
Yeah. Like I'm the bad dancer who just like has fun. Uh, If I had to do like a structured dance, this would not be for me at all. I would still be there in Jordan doing this dance. Um, so yeah, even if the language task took me a bit of time, I would 100% be doing that. Um, and hopefully, I would have the presence of mind to just know that regardless of how bad I'm doing in letter by letter, it would be way worse on step by. How about you?
I mean, I think I would probably do the dance task. I grew up as a dancer.
Yeah,
It would depend on who was my partner. So, whatever my partner would feel more comfortable in, because I definitely would feel comfortable dancing. But if my partner was like, "I will never get this," then I'd be like, if you will never get this, I will get an alphabet before you get this dance." So, if it were me and you together, we will do the alphabet, and I think that we could probably bang it out.
yeah, and I love how and I'm sure you have it. I love how Marcus and Michael like kind of
Gamed it.
yeah, and reread the clue. Legal gaming, like you said in the beginning.
Mhm.
It was perfect. I thought it was brilliant. I thought DX and Claire would have noticed that
Figured it
too.
out.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
I don't think they did. I think they were going through the alphabet together multiple times.
Yeah, they definitely said that they didn't think about it, like, the way it was worded, it didn't click for them that that was a possibility, but
Right.
then they're kind of like, "Well, for the future, like, I'm just gonna try it," or, you know what I mean, to
Yeah.
see, like, whether or not, like, they would let us do that. So, yeah, they didn't figure that out. But the brothers, they were having a lot of trouble pronouncing things, and I always find it so interesting because I've never really had trouble pronouncing things. I don't know if it's because I've learned French growing up, but, like, I can roll my R's and I can be like, like, I don't know, like, what's up? Like, where is the trouble?
That confessional was so weird from Derek X. Like, who on their birthday is thinking about rolling their R's? Like,
Ugh.
I was so lost and so confused. Like, I get it if you say, like, "It's been a struggle for me, it's something that I'm not great at," but saying it in context with your birthday, I had no idea. It made no sense to me.
Well, yeah, it doesn't really make any sense why on his birthday, but he did also say that he would in class when he was taking, I believe, Spanish classes, like, he didn't want to feel dumb or something. So maybe when he was
Mm,
taking these Spanish classes, maybe it was around his birthday or something like that. And so I don't know. I'm trying to make it make sense. It doesn't make any sense. But
I see.
what do you think about Claire's technique to help Derek roll his R's?
It was honestly, like, at first I thought it was I'm like, "There's no way this is gonna work." Like, the guy the guy that the race hired is laughing at them, like, while they're gargling water, and I was just like, "This is nuts. There's no way this is gonna work." Um, and it's what Derek needed, I guess, so it's just another testament for their relationship that they know each other well, and maybe it was something that they needed as, a long shot to, um, to get past this task, but it ended up working, so good for Claire under pressure there thinking of that.
I also like the fact that Claire has kind of been seemingly the weak link in their partnership. I know she's been really great with reading the maps and giving directions, but
Mhm.
in the tasks that she's done so far, she hasn't really excelled. And so it was really nice to see her be able to kind of shine there and be able to like help him shine in this particular task.
Absolutely, yeah. I wish they, because it's so frustrating, and we see it all over reality TV. But in a guy girl pair, the guy always gets more credit. We see it a
Mhm.
lot in Survivor, um, and in Big Brother too. So like obviously Claire's been helping them a lot. It's just like, oh, we have Claire building something again, and we know how the Ducati went, so let's give them like the dodo edit for this thing now. When they could have easily like given Marcus and Michael the dodo edit when they were counting the number of nails, when like everyone was just putting it together and getting their
Mhm.
clue. So I do feel for Claire because she's clearly been like they have made up ground on the other teams, and that's not just a one person thing
Mhm.
in the race. Like you both have to be on point to catch other teams.
Absolutely. And I don't know if you watched any of the Holdernesses
Mhm.
videos,
Yeah.
but I kind of feel like this is a similar vibe to when I was watching the Holdernesses.
Mhm.
How they spoke about the race. There was like no bitterness, like really happy, excited to explain everything that was going on every single leg. And it seems to me like the same vibe that Claire and Derek have. And so I'm saying it to you. I've said it before on the pod, but I feel like this could be a Claire Derrick winners edit, because of the fact that just how they interact in their own podcast, it just seems that they're coming from a winning place.
It would be really cool. I really enjoyed seeing the Holderness, winning story, if you will, over the season. I loved how Kim was able to like conquer her fears throughout the season. We haven't really seen Claire have a ton of fears throughout the race, but I can see how, everyone sees Derek and he does his tasks so quickly. And then when Claire gets on them, it's, slowing
Just
them
for
down. Yeah. So I could see that comparison for sure with Kim and Penn, and I'd be thrilled if they won. I think it's well overdue for any Asian representation
Mm.
winning the race. So that would be great.
So we did see, we talked about it a little bit already, but the twins didn't seem to have any trouble with this letter by letter task.
Yeah.
Um Aubrey and David, dancers, they obviously are going to choose the dance task. There's three dance teams still left in this race, and this is, I believe, the second dance task that we've had. What are your feelings, because coming from someone that would not choose that task ever, about there being so many dance teams that can excel on so many dance tasks.
So you know, you you do it. I'm sure a lot of us who talk about these shows, you put yourself in the mindset of the people running the race, and like I have a few people in my life that I would run the race with if it ever happened. And my sister is very much like would be choosing the dance task.
Oh my
So
god.
before the race, like I would just be taking lessons from her. Um, but it was interesting to see that all of these dance teams are still in because it feels like every other week we're getting a dance task, um, which could be a little bit of a disadvantage considering how many dance teams there are on this
Mhm.
season. But I like the dance teams. I mean, Aubrey and David haven't given us a ton, but I really like Quentin and Maddie in the little bit that we've gotten,
Mhm.
um, and yeah, and obviously Lewis and Michelle have been great too. But I do a non-dance team must be really pissed off on
You're
this
like,
season.
I have to do the other one. I have to do this. I have to do the bells. I have to do letter by letter.
Oh my god, the
Like,
bells with Rex Ryan was, yeah, that was hysterical.
So Sophie's joining us. Sophie wants to know where Jojo is. Actually, Josh has met Jojo because Jojo was
Yeah.
with me when I went to New York. So Jojo isn't able to be here. He's not up to date on the race, so he couldn't come and hang out today, unfortunately. But Sophie did really enjoy this episode. Now Cheryl has some interesting tea. Derek and Claire also stated that they just moved to LA. Another winner edit.
So Cheryl, I did notice they moved to LA. I did not. I'm gonna be honest. That is really smart. I did not even think about that being a winner edit. I just thought, oh, 3 TV appearances between the two.
True.
They've got some extra money and are sick of the cold New York weather. And I think DX is from Maryland.
I
So
But, like, I don't know, like, I feel like I would never if I were Claire's a New Yorker, though, no, or is she from somewhere else and moved to New York?
I think her family's from Virginia,
Oh,
and then they were both living in New York City though when they first started dating.
I'm just so much more New York than LA that, like, I just can't imagine wanting to do that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be me, but that is a very good point Cheryl brings up. Who knows? Maybe they leveled up at a nicer apartment due to that race money that's going to
Well,
be
they
coming in.
wouldn't have received any money yet, so
Right.
apparently they don't get any money or can take any of the trips or any of that until the full season has aired. So
Hmm.
when Will and James, they had like that
Yeah.
almost 2-year hiatus, they had to keep their mouth shut and they didn't get to spend their $1,000,000. So I guess could they put in the bank and at least get some interest there? Or like
Yeah, you would hope. I remember we talked to James and Will, or it sounds so weird saying it that way because it was always Will and
Will and
James on the
James?
show. But we talked to them after their win, and when they told us that, we were just shocked that like they couldn't go on the trips, they couldn't get their money. So yeah, it's very it must be frustrating for whoever wins to like not be able to get your money till the whole thing.
Especially with it's like a life-changing amount. Like
Oh yeah,
you're like living paycheck to paycheck when you know you have $1,000,000. Like it's like you're waiting for that paycheck in the mail and you're just like, okay, I know I'm rich, but I'm like, not yet. Ah! It's so frustrating.
yeah,
So Maddie and
definitely.
Quinton and Team Croquetas are all kind of working together. They end up when they're running around, they stumbled onto the pit stop. But they're obviously going to do the dance task, both of those teams. And we wouldn't want to go and compete against them. Like even me as a dancer, if I was your partner, like I would be like, I don't want to compete against these dance teams where both people are quite adept at movement.
Yeah, we're doing letter by letter. Once we see them heading over and getting the dance task in like 1 or 2 tries. Yeah, they're a very stiff competition when it comes to any dance task whatsoever.
Lumumba and Glenda do decide to do the dance task. And obviously, like you, they're one of my favorite teams this season. I'm worried about them because they started off strong and then they had that one leg where they were running to the next clue and they realized they were supposed to drive. And from that point, it seems like they haven't really been able to regain their momentum at the top of the pack. So I'm worried for them because they weren't great at this dance task, and I was hoping that they would be able to excel here.
It almost seems for me like when it comes down to like accuracy, they're very much like getting flustered, missing things, and at least for me, we know as the season goes on, um, the judges get harder on the race. At least it seems.
Mhm.
Um, and if they're getting sloppy already, like we're already down to 7 teams. Like there's not going to be a lot of room to start, you
Messing
know,
up.
yeah, misreading clues like they've
No.
done, doing the dance task like 6 or 7 times, like they
I
did.
think how much they ended? They left, I think it was after their eighth try, I think.
Yeah,
Eighth, yeah.
yeah,
Not
it's
good.
no, and I was wondering if like part of it was like they were not going 100% because they knew they weren't going to get eliminated, but you still don't want to get last
You
place
don't want to
in
be
that
45
spot.
minutes behind the first
Yeah.
team. Just
Um,
not at all.
yeah. I For a second I thought that, but then It's like there's no way with Glenda, she wouldn't want to be that far behind. So
So while they're at the dance task, though, the
mhm.
dancers do show up, and like obviously them being dancers and able to pick up choreography a lot more easily, Glenda and Lumumba were a little bit intimidated by their new competition, unfortunately. So over at the other task, though, letter by letter, the brothers do get it done. They get first place here, and they're going to be going to who's feeling broken carded. You.
Yes,
Would you object?
I would not object. Yeah, I could definitely do this part. Putting it together, honestly, putting it together would not have been bad, only because they were really not strict at all. And I thought it was going to be the way Marcus and Michael were handling it, like counting the nails, being super specific where everything was. They did not care. So I would have been able to build this and then bring it to the pit stop for us, and we would have gotten our trip to Barcelona with no problem.
Well, I think that the gag for this task was they want it to fall apart while they're
Yeah.
carrying all these items and like it's busted down. Like I think that that's what they wanted to have, like really like a broken down kind of a golf cart, broken down cart. I think is what their intentions were. So they were being very lax on it wasn't a pay attention to detail task. And I was listening a little bit to Justin from the Green Team. I don't know if you had watched any of his seasons.
Um,
It might have been before. Did he come back for that one? He's done 2 seasons, I believe. Do you remember do you know who I'm talking about? The Green Team?
no, I don't think
Well,
so.
he does have another like a racer pod, and he was an excellent racer, him and his now wife. And so he was saying that there's a way to be able to look at some of these things to know whether or not it's a pay attention to detail task or if it's just like get it done and get it to the mat type task. And so it doesn't say like make sure that you da 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 da. Like that wasn't the objective of it. It was like bring the cart with like these items to the pit stop. And so something like that. It was like more about like the journey as opposed to the details in how the clue was read, was could give you some inclination as to what was important for this task.
Yeah, wow, that's a really interesting point that I think like only people in the race would be able to pick up on.
That's what he said basically. So he wants some insider racing
Yeah.
info.
Um, yeah, it was interesting to see these teams, like some of them really were struggling here with the building it together and everything. Um, but I again was just impressed by Lewis and Michelle. I I'm glad they're showing them more now, but this was a great effort by them on the roadblock.
Definitely. So everybody kind of gets to Lewis and Michelle get to the park, like to build the carts
Mhm.
before the brothers do, because at one point the brothers were like, I think it was Michael said, like, is that the park we're supposed to go to? And they're like, no, I don't think so. And they actually second guessed themselves and ran past it. And then when they kind
Mhm.
of looped around and came back, now they were no longer in first place. Now, if we had that kind of feeling, wouldn't it just make sense for us just to check?
Yeah, yeah. What?
I don't know. Like if I said, say we're on the race and I'm like, is that the park? Would you be like, nah, let's run past it? Or like, no, let's just cross the street and check.
Yeah, that's it was literally across the street. It wasn't like they were seeing it from like blocks away, you know? Like you're right there. You might as well check. I'm sure you're gonna see like red and yellow tape around there or something.
Eventually, yes.
Yeah, that signifies that it's for the race. And also if the cameras are following you over there, most likely you're heading in the right direction. So I uh I was surprised because they were so close to where they had to be that they didn't
Mhm.
even check. It was for them a big mistake, but granted they have made
Decent.
very little mistakes that we've seen.
Well, they do talk about the fact, is it them? that I think, yeah, they said a couple episodes ago that they debrief after every leg, and they look at like how they can improve what they kind of failed at or what they excelled at. And so I think that that will be something that they won't do ever again. I do
Right.
not think that if they see something that they think might be it, I do not think that they will let it pass them in the future. So they definitely make very minor mistakes, and I do think that they're going to iron out all these mini errors. I think they're getting to the final three. I 100%.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think that's a lock at this point with how good they've been. And I think not only that, I think the way they've been edited, I think we're getting them in the final three. They're always explaining the tasks. They're always explaining how they're going to achieve what they're doing throughout the legs. So I do see this being a a final three for them. Whether they win, who knows? But
But these little mistakes might indicate them not winning, right? They
right.
might make one of these little mistakes in that final three.
Hmm.
So I was frustrated that Emily couldn't do this task because we saw how she was amazing with the Ducati. Like she knows she can do IKEA furniture really easily. She just has a mind for being able to put things together. And when Molly has done some of these types of tasks, she hasn't been as excellent as Emily has been. So I was like, oh goodness, I hope this doesn't put them at the very back because Molly's doing this particular task. It doesn't happen, but I just want Emily's leg to get better, basically.
I I want her leg to get better. I hope they're icing it in the off time. I hope they're doing whatever they can do to make it better. But I am really worried with ever since the Italy leg, like they are referring to this constantly, and it's normally not good when it comes to edit and all that type of thing. But I would just hope and love to see them overcome it and go further.
How about we just change our narrative about this?
Sure.
What if they keep on repeating it because they know that we are going to think that it's going to be take them out of the game, but really it's going to be because we're like crying with her because we know Emily's leg is hurting and they're running to the finish line and like she's in so much pain and they end up getting the win over in spite of the fact that she has pulled muscle.
Listen, your $1,000,000 can definitely fix a bull muscle. So
Yeah.
that's a
Get them
great way
across
to
that
think about
line.
it.
Let's look at it that way. I don't think so, but let's hope. Let's hope. Let's hope. So, as mentioned before, after their eighth try, Lumumba and Glenda do get through the dance class. I think that they were just tired of seeing them do it. They're just like, okay, you've been here long enough. You can go and continue with the rest of the teams. Um, Everybody was working on the cart at the exact same time, but Lewis gets his golf cart first, and which is probably why you were impressed by him. And so they have to go to, how do I pronounce this? A nymph. I can't read my writing. Nympharium,
Yes.
nymphorium, something like that. And so that was going to be where the pit stop is. Now, they didn't really explain carrying all these items. Where'd they get the items from?
They were just there, I think. When they showed up to the roadblock, it looked like everything was in a box already. This was eh, I really enjoyed that with this leg and I guess how it was structured. We have every team building at the same time. I always like that. Always enjoy when it's not just like everybody
Separate, kind of.
exactly. Yeah. And I I do feel like with Glenda and Lumumba, some PA like called over to the people that were at the dance task and were
Let
like,
them come. We want them all to be together.
exactly, exactly. But
Definitely, they're just like let them pass for
yeah,
sure. Carts are falling apart while they're running through the streets. You're trying to get to the pit stop. They had to stop and rebuild it. I believe Luis and Michelle did. Um, Also, David was pretty quick at doing this. We know that he is a helicopter mechanic, so this should definitely be easy peasy breezy. But Claire did mention that he didn't actually have it put together that well, which is further proof that it wasn't a task about detail. It was just about hopeful functionability or they probably didn't want it to be functional. So David, I believe, is out of their second, but they're all just wait. Hold on, what happened here? Michael taking so long. Oh, Michael! Why does Michael take so long doing some of these things? Marcus must want to murder Michael sometimes.
I think I'm sure, because we hear about it on the other shows too, when people get on the podcasts and talk about their history with casting, they say the casting will tell them, watch this season, watch that season. And there's definitely seasons that are much more detail oriented with the tasks. And he probably wanted to make sure he had it right. But then I was watching and I'm thinking, like, if you see all these people come here after you and finish quicker, you got to think that they're not all doing that and you can just slap it together and go. Like,
Right.
I
Exactly.
was surprised by that too. It really was.
Cheryl said that Claire said that she was the only one using a wrench.
Yeah, I
Which
mean, theirs did seem very put together. So that does add up. It seemed like everyone else was just like, all right, let's hammer here, hammer there, and go.
go Claire, get that wrench action on.
Hmm.
So before getting to the pit stop, the one sad moment was Glenda was having a little bit of a breakdown, with not doing well in the last couple tasks, and she, I believe, was the last person at the cart making, and she got a little pep talk from Lumumba.
Yeah, I really like this. I've watched those two on our friend Bryce Isaiah's
Me
podcast and
too.
his YouTube channel. They were great, and I love how, even though like she's definitely the alpha in their relationship, he's there to be there for her, and really help her out in this time where she can't seem to get it right. And it was great just hearing him say, like, take a deep breath, like, take a minute or so, and get back to it. I definitely feel like some of these teams wouldn't be like that. So it was refreshing to see.
Absolutely. He didn't berate her. He didn't like make her feel bad, make her feel wrong for like wanting to quit or whatever, like whatever was going on. Like he was just very supportive. And anything that happens, he was going to be okay with. And I think that that's what she needed to hear at that moment. So I was like, so sweet. But
Mhm.
coming in first to the pit stop is Team Croquetas. We got Luis and Michelle winning a trip to Barcelona. Have you been to Barcelona?
I have not been to Barcelona. I This one and then whoever won the Sydney, Australia one, those were the two that I've been the most jealous of thus far in the race. How about you?
I've not been to either. I think that Australia is quite far.
Just a bit,
I
yep.
could take a couple trips like with like my travel time, just going to Australia. I haven't been to Barcelona, but I was planning on going to Spain summer 2020. So maybe summer 2023 I'll go to Spain. But yeah, it's definitely on my list. I used to take flamenco dance when I was living in Vancouver. I remember in ballet we did like a Spanish inspired dance, and I was learned how to play the castanets. Like, so I just think I would really enjoy all things Spain. And I worked at a Spanish tapas restaurant for a couple years. So I just love Spain. I love the food. I think that I would enjoy being there, especially in like a metropolis like Spanish City. So never been, but definitely on my list. I think it'll be my next spot, like real spot to go to.
Yeah, it's a good one to have on the list for sure.
So cute though. Like I don't know if you noticed when they panned out from when Luis and Michelle were at the pit stop, like they were doing the dance, like the wedding dance that they had to do, and I was like, you guys are so cute.
I saw them dancing. I did not put two and two together that it was the same dance. Once again, showing how bad I would be at a dance task. But this, yeah, I enjoyed seeing them celebrate. Definitely not flaunting too much or anything like that. Just really happy at their success. And
Two
apparently,
in a
the
row.
country of Jordan is great for them because two legs and two first places.
It's great. It's great. Hopefully they can keep this momentum.
Mhm.
Another surprise at the mat next was David and Aubrey, and they are used to getting the fake out from Phil of like potentially being the team eliminated. And so they could tell that there was a different Phil when they're there in second place. How surprised were you that they have moved so far up this leg?
I was surprised, but I was more surprised that Aubrey had the audacity to tell Phil Kogan on his show that he has an unhappy look whenever they're on the mat. It's like, are you kidding me? This man is the face of this show.
How
And
dare you?
yeah, I mean, yes, I'm definitely joking there, but I was surprised seeing them in second place. Like, we really have not gotten much of those 2 in the edit. So to see them make that jump to second place, I I was certainly surprised. So good for them. Definitely a strong finish, and yeah, hopefully they can keep it going when they head to France.
So the third place team is Quentin and Maddie, who I enjoy. I don't see enough of. I believe they were also on this week with talking with Bryce. They did a couple.
Mhm.
I think I watched that one. And but I love them. I think that they're great. We haven't seen that much of them. But how do you feel about the top three placing teams? Are all dance teams?
All dance teams. It's tough because I like Quentin and Maddie, and I like um, Luis and Michelle. Uh, I feel like it could be a bit of a disadvantage, especially since all 3 dance teams were the top 3, and it was very obvious in the detour that it was a dance task. So they're treading on some interesting water by doing that, and I know they set up everything well in advance, but um, it's not ideal in my opinion, I guess.
I'm wondering if like there will be no more dance tasks left from now until the end, and now we'll see them not necessarily excel.
Yeah,
Just because it's not going to be things that are going to be in their wheelhouse necessarily. So I just was like, I like all those teams. And I would be one of those like dance teams most likely that like would want to be like, hey man, lucky for us.
yeah,
But as a viewer and as like someone that wants some of the other teams to potentially win, yeah, I might be a little bit irritated. Like top three, all dance teams, dance challenge, interesting.
yeah. I'm sure like Derek X and Claire aren't talking about it on their podcast, but I'm sure them, Marcus and Michael, Emily and Molly, Glendon and Lamunda were like, really? We're
But to
we're
go up
sitting
against
behind
dancers.
exactly. So it's got to be frustrating.
Well, Derek and Clara, they were going to pair up. I don't remember which dance team they wanted to pair up with to do. They were running around with at one point, and they said that like, oh, as soon as they realized it was a dance task, they're like, okay, bye. And same with the last dance task, they're like, oh, I guess we're not working together. Okay, bye. Like every time they partner up with a dance team, there's a dance challenge, so they have to like separate from them. So they are in fourth place here at the mat, right smack dab in the middle. We have Marcus and Michael. Marcus looked disappointed. Holy, so sad, or just
Yeah,
like not happy with them.
no, not happy at all. Definitely their worst performing leg of the race, and they're definitely the 2 who like get down on themselves and are very self-critical for sure of
For
anyone on the
sure.
race.
Ooh, where they're going to be leaving is like not great.
Mhm.
Sixth place is the twins. And then seventh place is Glenda and Mumba. And I wrote down, I put in quotes, tears in your eyes. So why did I write that? Do you know?
I she Glenda was crying at the pit stop because Phil mentioned he was like, I can see you have tears in your eyes.
Ah.
And she was saying that she felt like she let Lamunda
Oh,
down. Um, which like I did appreciate with how strong of a woman she is that she, like, admitted that she felt like she let her husband down, but you could just tell that he, like, even if they were gonna get eliminated this leg, he wouldn't have felt that way, so it was really nice um, to see, him reassuring her that it's gonna be okay, we're still in this race, and even if they weren't, he was such a supportive partner in that moment.
Definitely. And that's it for our episode. Was there anything else that went down on Step by Step? I think it was episode 6 that you wanted to talk about.
No, I think we got to everything. I enjoyed it a lot. I did wanna, I don't know if you talk about the preview for the next
Just go
episode.
for it.
Yeah, I saw we see, like, at the very end of the preview, there's, like, a car backing up and, like, the camera goes all, like, busy a little bit. Um, so I'm very much thinking that it's not, uh, Marcus and Michael or Emily and Molly. I just don't see them being the teams, to have, like, a drastic mistake and end up coming in last. I don't know who it would be, but it seems like we're gonna have a really entertaining episode tomorrow night.
Well, there's 2 teams that speaks no, I think actually Quentin and Maddie also speak Spanish. I might be making that up, but I feel like the Spanish speaking teams will be able to get by in France. The language is quite similar. So I'm wondering if that's going to also give the dance teams basically an advantage.
Yeah. Well, at least it's because of a language and not because of their dancing.
Dancing.
Um, and it's not just singling out dancers, it's the fact that it's been on multiple legs, and it's like, I feel like anyone who watches, if they're even like a casual of the race and they watch every episode, they would still notice that this is going on.
Absolutely. And be
So,
like, "Another dance challenge?" Like, what? Absolutely. Well, I don't know what's gonna happen next episode, but I've
mhm.
been to France, so I will be excited to see how France goes down. Paris is probably my favorite city, one of my favorite cities at least. If I could, I would live in Paris. So I don't know if they're going to Paris, but I love the idea that they're going to France just because I enjoy that country so much. So it will be fun to see people try to speak French or try to communicate. Um, I hope that nobody gets hurt in the backing up onto the cameraman. Hope everybody's
Yeah,
okay.
me too. You never wanna
Who do you think could possibly do that? Claire, if Claire is driving.
yeah, certainly possible. Is France stick shift?
I think everywhere in Europe. Well, they make sure everywhere in Europe is six shift. I think.
Right, right.
But I'd say more likely yes. Like when I was there, most cars were standard.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely possible with Claire. Um, but it would be interesting for it to be her because, like you mentioned earlier,
She
she's been doing a
navigates.
lot of the navigating. So,
Well, and also people have been having trouble when do you drive standard?
yes, yeah, yeah.
So when the reverse is beside the first gear, I
Mm,
think that they're having trouble getting it into reverse as opposed to getting into first or vice versa. So I'm assuming that somebody was trying to put it into first gear, but really ended up putting it into reverse.
oh boy. Oh no.
We'll
Um,
see. Well, I can't wait to see this episode happening tomorrow. So we don't have to wait too long to see what happens on this next leg. But how about you, Josh? What do you have going on your channel? How do you want people to follow you? What's going on?
of course. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I had a blast. I love talking reality TV with you and just hanging out. You're an absolute blast. So thank you. Um, as far as everything for me, over on the Challenge Fanatics podcast, we have been reaching out to Viacom, hoping to get some of these people on our podcast. This season, it seems to be a little bit more strict with cast interviews, but hoping to get them at some point. Uh, Regardless, we will have a recap of this week's episode, had one of last week's talking all things Fessy, since he was all
Fessel.
over Fessel, excuse me, thank you. Since he was all over that episode last week, between I did enjoy him talking about his name and everything that it meant, as well as everything with him and Colleen. So yeah, check that out wherever you get your podcasts, and you can follow me on Twitter at JoshGreen321 and on Instagram at It's Jay Green.
Sweet. And all of Josh's socials are in the description box below. And I can also put the Challenge Fanatic podcast in there as well. I just forgot to ask in advance. So it was great having you, Josh. I'm so happy that you were able to come and hang out and talk something different other than Survivor or Big Brother or the challenge. It was nice to talk the Amazing Race. And I thought that was a good episode to introduce you to reality realness. Yay!
Yes, it was a blast, and if anyone's ever out for the challenge or for the Amazing Race, let me know. I'm usually around and love talking about these shows, and
I know, right?
even if I'm not on a podcast, I'm usually talking about them anyway.
Right? Exactly. We made these podcasts so we could just talk about them. I
Exactly.
was definitely talking about them, at least with my mom or my brother or a couple of friends, but not met many people. So now I'm starting to build this community of people that love talking about these shows. So thank you for being part of my community too.
Oh, of course, yeah. I am so happy I was able to come on.
Aw, thank you, Luna. Luna says, great recap. Well, it's only
Thanks,
great
Luna.
because you guys are here watching us and commenting. And so thanks everybody for being here. Please, if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel, like this video. Likes are really, really important to YouTube. So just like this video, even if you don't like this, even a downvote is an upvote in the eyes of YouTube. So please just do something with those thumbs and leave a comment. Who do you think is going to be driving into a cameraman? Everybody, I'm assuming, is okay. So who do you think out of all the teens that are left? Maybe I'll put up a poll. So let us know in the comments and we can continue this conversation there. Bye, everybody.